What? Since the last fan cast, we made 900 subscribers? It's true. It's damn true, guys. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I know the fan casts are a big part of what's helped us get there, and everyone that supports them in the comments and stuff and likes them and just views them. Thank you so much for that. It's amazing, guys. We're in that final stretch to 1,000. So particularly if you want to, share this video or anything, that would be so much appreciated, because we have made the watch time. We've made the watch time thing that you need for monetization. So if I get 1,000 subscribers, we're monetized. What? And that would be incredible. So go ahead, if you fancy that. Today we are looking at A Christmas Carol, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. But first of all, we need to talk about what the next fancast is. It's getting pretty close to Christmas, guys. So you really got to vote for the ones you want to see this year, because the rest will just have to wait until next year. So, which is the next fancast you want to see on Sunday? Is it Elf, Miracle on 34th Street, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Jack Frost, or the Santa Claus? I should mention, I'm thinking Michael Keaton Jack Frost. If you want the horror film Jack Frost, we'll talk about that another time maybe. But for today, let's get down to this fancast. Christmas Carol and Ebenezer Scrooge to kick us off. It's an interesting story, but for me, A Christmas Carol, most of the versions of it do retain almost too much of the Dickensian nature of the original book, And I know that, that's the original, why don't you want to honour that? But kind of, it's such a serious story with such a serious message, and we've seen so many comedic versions now, we've seen things like Scrooge with Bill Murray, we've seen the Muppets Christmas Carol, which is my personal favourite, that I just kind of think, you know what, I didn't want to cast this as too serious a version of the story. I'm having a bit of fun with it. I do think, you could easily take this cast and make a pretty serious one, but you could also do something really fun with it, and I'd like to see that. I'd like to see some fun injected into this tale. For Ebenezer Scrooge, we have, as you could probably see in the thumbnail, I'd probably use that as the thumbnail, used Peter Capaldi. Yeah, no, that was no question to me. Someone did suggest that in the comments. Thank you very much. That's a great suggestion, and I can't beat it myself. That is, there's so many older British guys, with this kind of, a lot of them have that classical training style about them all, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Michael Gambon. You could cast any of them, any of them would be able to do Scrooge. I wanted Peter Capaldi because I thought he's got a bit more of that ability to play this kind of comedic role about him. Even if, even in Muppets Christmas Carol, Michael Caine did it, and he wasn't that funny a character as Scrooge, but he had his moments and things like that, and I think Peter Capaldi would use those moments really well. He's done a lot of great comedy kind of work, in addition to all this serious stuff he's also done, And don't worry, I'm sure he could pull off a more posh accent than that kind of rough and tough Scottish accent that he comes off with a lot of the time, Next, it's pretty important to have Tiny Tim cast correctly, and here's the problem. Tiny Tim's tiny. Tiny Tim's really tiny, He's pretty darn young, and that's the crux of what makes Scrooge feel so bad. He's killing these tiny, tiny children. But it is difficult to find child actors when you go looking to cast, and I have a problem with this a lot, I try to cast a lot of things with child actors necessary, and, there's only so young that you can find child actors, really, because most of the ones that were really, really young in something have grown up a bit since then, God damn it. And it's hard to find the names online of ones that are really still young. I'm gonna say Billy Jenkins could do it, okay? He's been in a few things, and he's just... He looks young enough, and even though he's 12 now, you could still get away with, before he hits puberty, doing him as an 8 or 9-year-old, and that's pretty young, Do they want a 5-year-old? They probably want a 5-year-old. You're probably going to cast unknown for this, but Billy Jenkins would work pretty well, Next, and then you need his parents. Bob Cratchit is a pretty important character, And, in my mind, you gotta try and replace Kermit the Frog here, and it's pretty difficult. Kermit the Frog is pretty good, Bob Cratchit, And Kermit the Frog, the thing about him is, and the reason why it worked so well, him in the Muppets Christmas Carol, I'm gonna keep talking about the Muppets Christmas Carol throughout this, so if you're not interested in that, then just get out, guys. The thing about him is that he gives off this kind of almost beat-a-meal energy, He's good at playing these characters that are kind of okay, Mr. Scrooge, I'm sorry, and somebody I thought would be good at that, but also good at just being this really kind fatherly figure, It's James McAvoy. That's right. The Scottish are taking over in this Christmas Carol, guys. Screw the English. And James McAvoy is, he's great. He's great. He's so, he seems like such a good, at the age he's at, like 40, 41 now. He seems so right to play these really good fatherly figures, He comes off that way. Anybody else? No, it's just me. Okay. But definitely he's got some of that energy about him. Not that I think he's like a beta male energy. He's also really good as like a proper lead. But he's definitely got the style about him where he can play these kind of more, introverted kind of characters who are kind of in the background a bit more, even if they can come strong and be like a really great father and stuff like that. That's kind of what we need there. Next, and then you need Emily Cratchit. Yes, much less, important, I guess. She isn't in as much of it. She just needs to be a really good mother, but like firm as well, because she's the one who kind of rails against Scrooge because her husband won't so much, And in my mind, you want somebody like Hayley Atwell for that, because I love Hayley Atwell. I loved Agent Carter and stuff like that in the Marvel films, and I love, just everything I see her in. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, hell yeah, it's Hayley Atwell, yeah, because she's someone that it's easy to forget about because she hasn't had like that many big starring roles and things, in big movies. But she deserves more, and she is kind of reaching that age where she can play like a motherly figure, but she always comes off, no matter what she's doing, is like quite strong-willed and stuff like that. And that's what you need here. Emily is very much a kind of outspoken wife. Anytime, right at the end, like when Scrooge comes around, she's kind of like, whoa, no, you get out of here. So that's kind of what you're looking for there. Next, now the rest, who else do we need? I'm going to cast Fred next. Nephew Fred, Scrooge's nephew. You can also bring his mother into it, Scrooge's sister, but she's not in a lot of versions. That's how forgettable she is, in the original book she is. She's seen in his visions of Christmas past, I think. Picking him up from school or something like that, but it's fairly unnecessary. His nephew, though, is more important, and Fred is a young guy, he's getting married, but it's kind of, since it's set back then, it's kind of okay to cast very young for him, a very young man, because he's, everyone got married so young, I kind of wanted to cop out here. I kind of want to cast Tom Holland, because Tom Holland, any young British guy role these days, I'm like, Tom Holland can do that. It's a fair enough assumption here, because he definitely is able to pull off something of that kind of just joyful, but Fred's just happy. He's just happy. He doesn't care how angry Scrooge is. He wishes him Merry Christmas anyway. Gives what he can, despite being fairly poor himself. And he's just happy. He's getting married. He's delighted, He's just having a good time with life, man. And Tom Holland just, he's the kind of actor who, when he smiles, you kind of go, that's a happy guy there, He's just got an infectious smile. And that's what Fred needs. That's all he needs. He's not a huge character. They probably couldn't get Tom Holland for this. Anyway, next. Fizzy Wig is Scrooge's old boss. He was his boss, right? Is he around really in the present? I mean, in some versions, you spot him as an older guy, kind of retired a bit. Not really though. But in the Ghost of Christmas Past visions, he's very present, because he was Scrooge's first boss, and Scrooge was trying to move up through the ranks quickly, and all this was going on, I kind of wanted to cast somebody like Robbie Coltrane here, okay? Because he's very good, at seeming like this happy, jolly guy, almost Santa-esque as Hagrid, you could describe him as. But he also has done a lot of these more serious roles, like politician-y roles and things like that. And he kind of, Fizzy Wig is a mix between those two things, because he at the Christmas party and stuff, he is very jolly and happy, and he's like, oh, Scrooge, take some time off. But he is also the head of this big business, So Robbie Coltrane seems like he could do both of those things at once, And that is that's all you need for Fizzy Wig. Again, not a huge role particularly. Next. Oh, God. Oh, here comes the heartbreaker. This is the scene both that breaks your heart the most and that you can easily skip the most in the Muppets Christmas Carol. It's the past scene where Scrooge meets Belle, and it hurts. It hurts, children, because you just want them to be happy, and they never will be. And even though Scrooge gets happy at the end, what happened to Belle? Is she around? Is she dead? And he'll never see her again. It's sad, guys. It's sad. Any true romance, truly beautiful romance that you see in a film that will never actually be complete, at least within the film's runtime, it just gets you, And that is the story of young Scrooge and Belle. And for them, I wanted to cast young Scrooge, you know. I'm going to cast Timothée Chalamet as young Scrooge. Timothée Chalamet, he seems like this young, moving up quickly, businessy kind of guy, you know. He comes off like that naturally, you know. That's my go-to for like someone who's very official despite being so young. That's kind of my go-to right now. And as such, as I was casting Timothée Chalamet, I kind of thought for Belle, you could maybe if you wanted to cast Saoirse Ronan, I don't know, like you could, you know. That's simply, you know, and I know they've been in a lot of things together, but that's why I wanted to do them here. You know, it's a basic choice. If you're casting Timothée Chalamet, go ahead and cast Saoirse Ronan as a love interest. But that is what you need here, because all this is a quick past scene, you know? But you need to try and fit as much emotion and chemistry between them as possible into this one short bit of the film. So you need people who just seem like they naturally have chemistry on screen. And my God, do they, you know? My God, do they? So that's perfect and easy. Next. Okay, it's Ghosty Time. It's Ghosty Time, baby! So, just, you know, right? Okay, right. Most people, right, when they're casting the Ghost of Christmas Past, she's meant to be like this little girl. But normally, you know, as often as not in films, she's been like a guy playing her or whatever, you know? And that's weird to me, but also kind of made me think, you know, I've got to give myself a bit of leniency to do something a bit different there, even if it's not, you know, I'm not casting a guy, I'm casting a young girl, but I was kind of like, why not cast Millie Bobby Brown? Because, yes, she's a bit older than you'd probably really cast her, but she'd give off like this different energy. Instead of the very, very tiny, young, innocent child energy, she'd kind of give off this, like, young girl, like, oh, come on, Scrooge, follow me, you know? She'd kind of be like that, you know, that kind of Enola Holmes style about her. That's exactly what you want for that role, I think. Well, that's what I want for that role. That's a different interpretation, but it's kind of, I just feel like it'd be a fun start to the story, you know, and she is kind of the one who is in it the most, I think, probably in the story, really. And you need somebody competent who can really deliver a lot of lines like that, kind of explaining to Scrooge's past and stuff. And I feel like Millie Bobby Brown would be fantastic for that. Next, then the Ghost of Christmas Present. It's quite simple. You just need somebody who can be jolly and big red beard, you know, like a kind of young Santa. I'm going to cast Christopher Hivju, Tormund Giantsbane from Game of Thrones, because he gives off that energy, this big booming guy, big huge ginger beard and all, who can just be really jolly and happy and just be like, hey Scrooge, how's it going, buddy? Because that's all he's kind of like, really, you know. And he's in a decent amount, a fair amount, you know, but not as much as the Ghost of Christmas Past. So it is more about the appearance and stuff like that I was going for here for sure. Next, and then the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Be, or Yet to Come, or Future if you're not a fancy Dickensian character. Just the future, okay? No, you could just, yeah, you don't really need him to talk, but you need him to strike an imposing stance, you know, and be an imposing figure. And you might want like the kind of whispering or the ability to talk like that, you know, the kind of creepy voice or whatever, in case you wanted to change things up a bit, because he's always just this big hulking goddamn Nazgul style, you know, person just walking around, and I'm kind of like, well, you know, that's fine and all, but if you wanted to give him a few lines, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch could do a few lines like that. He did like the Necromancer in the Hobbit films, and, you know, just looked very imposing there. It's all like CGI work or whatever here, really, probably at this stage, so you don't necessarily need to cast anybody, almost, you know, just anybody in a motion capture shooter. But I don't know. I kind of thought, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch could do above and beyond what they really need for this role, you know. Anything that they might want to add on to this kind of character, you can get him to do that for sure. Next, and finally, Jacob Marley, the former partner of Scrooge, the first ghost to appear to him. Now, normally it's just one person. But I had two options that I wanted to cast, and I was kind of like, hey, you know what? I'm being inspired today by the Muppets Christmas Carol, where they had the two old Muppet guys as two Marleys, and they did the whole, we're Marley and Marley, woo! And it was fantastic. That's a great scene, guys. That's a great scene. Come on. That's the best introduction to the ghosts in a Christmas Carol you've ever seen, right? Don't lie. So I was going to just kind of cast two different old British actors, but like, I like that about them as a pair. I'm going to cast Bill Nighy and Charles Dance as two Marleys. I love that idea of, like, Charles Dance is this really, like, serious version of Marley. You know, the very deep voice, the kind of, like, vicious, like, you must repent, you know, all of this. And then Bill Nighy is also there being like, well, you know, I guess you're going to have to listen to him, you know. Also, Bill Nighy, Christmas movies, Love Actually, come on. That's where it hits you, you know. And that's all for this fan cast, folks. But make sure you do subscribe and share this video and all sorts if you want to help me get monetized, because... Please, 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 and vote on which one of these fancasts you want to see next down in the comments below, because we've still got 3 more, so you might see 3 of those, but that's it for the year, so better get on them. Vote!